Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing Alien Romulus, directed by Fede Alvarez and starring Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson. The Alien franchise is one that I have only very recently begun exploring. Prior to watching Romulus, I had only seen Alien and Aliens, and I was pleasantly surprised with both of them, in fact, in terms of how much I thought they held up by modern day standards. I loved the production design, the slow burn, the long takes, the dark atmosphere of Alien, and I was surprised by how effective the switch to the more action-packed Aliens worked, although a bit more campy and definitely inferior in my opinion. And I'd say if we're looking in terms of genre and tone, Alien Romulus definitely has more in common with the very first Alien. It follows a group of young miners who are basically being overworked, living in destitution, and basically enslaved by the corporation that they work for, seeking a better future for themselves. And when they learn about some intact cryo chambers up aboard a derelict ship, they decide to go and explore it in the hopes of making a jump away to somewhere better. In terms of narrative, Alien Romulus is very formulaic. It follows very closely to the narrative of the very first Alien. And it's a film that doesn't really push the boundaries or seek to do anything new with the Alien franchise as a whole. And although I think it is formulaic, I do think that Romulus is very formidable in the way that it kind of hones and masters those conventions. When you're watching a creature feature or a horror film, you know that most of the ensemble being introduced with the eventual purpose of turning them into fodder throughout the runtime. And it is very hard to get emotionally compelled or engaged with these characters. However, at the center of Alien Romulus, there is a very effective surrogate sort of sibling dynamic between our main protagonist and a synthetic. And it raises some interesting questions about the role they play in our lives, the value of their life, the notion of individuality and autonomy in relation to their service to someone. And I thought Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson did a great job at developing that relationship. I know to a lot of people, Sigourney Weaver as Ripley is kind of like badass leading female action hero. I don't have the nostalgic connection to the original Alien films, and I definitely preferred the humanization of Rain in this one. The script felt like it went out of its way to make her an engaging character, to give her personal stakes, and incrementally build up to her being the hero of this story. We do have to shout out Isabella Merced. I think she is such a fantastic actor, and ever since I saw her in Instant Family, where she was devastatingly good in that film, I knew she was one to watch. And she brings such a fantastic sense of fear and just sheer terror to this film. I think she's probably the best scream queen this franchise has introduced so far. She's got such a real and organic response to encountering the facehuggers, the xenomorphs, and it really makes you feel it from a human perspective. The production design, the darkness, the silence, the ambience that Romulus manages to construct is really akin to the original Alien. It has some really brilliant sound design as well in amongst that quietude. It really allows the kind of distant echoes, creaking of the ship to really stand out. In terms of horror and threat, I think this film really masters the facehuggers. From what I've seen in all these films, I think the facehuggers are infinitely more terrifying than the xenomorphs, and this film seems to know that as well and really focuses on that. The sequence where they first decompress out of cryogenic freezing and drop into the water quietly and scuttle around was really brilliantly effective. The scene where our characters raise the temperature of a room to try and blend in while they quietly creep through was brilliant. The cut and run where they all kind of scurry along and chase the characters was brilliant. And of course we do get a chest bursting scene as well, which was also really well done. I think they are just the gnarliest. I think just their general look, the way that they kind of have some resemblance to crustaceans and arachnids, the sheer nature and process of their biological cycle, it's just very gross and leads to some of the franchise's more terrifying moments. The xenomorphs are just there. I've got to say that is the one thing that Aliens really diminished for me, was the kind of threat that the xenomorphs posed. We got them en masse in Aliens, and we got the queen xenomorph in Aliens, which I think was brilliant. But in terms of the amount of xenomorphs, I think Aliens proved to me that bigger isn't always better. It definitely made them less threatening to me. And while Romulus doesn't overdo it with the xenomorphs, it kind of goes for the more glimpses and flashes approach like the original Alien. I think that doesn't work as well anymore because we know what they look like, we know what they're capable of. I think we need a few more visual graphic scenes displaying their animosity, but I think this film definitely needed to find a new way to make the xenomorphs scary, because I don't think that they achieved that. The one sequence that was really good with them at the end was the blood rain sequence, and I wish that had been longer. I wish that had been a kind of one take, really drawn out sequence, building it up, having droplets maybe catch one or two of the characters, because that is the kind of creative ingenuity that I think made this film stand out, where the narrative ultimately didn't, was in the creative use of the scares and the terror. In terms of horror, we did also get a kind of hybrid humanoid xenomorph crossover creature at the end, bearing some resemblance to humans, some resemblance to the aliens, some resemblance to the engineers. It was a very kind of eerie design. It was a very skeletal, very pasty, very unsettling and distorted physicality, and it did give me the one jump scare in the film that got me. So ultimately, guys, I think Alien Romulus boils down to being very basic and run-of-the-mill in terms of your story, because ultimately it boils down to primal aliens killing humans, and how interesting can you make the universe around that? I don't know. It is anchored by a key central relationship that I think is compelling and does provide a degree of emotional heart for the film, and that does lead to some good set pieces and some really creative choices of horror sequences. So if you have seen Alien Romulus, guys, do drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Please also consider liking and subscribing to the channel. That is always a huge help for me. And in the meantime, we'll see you for the next vid.